welcome to all new and regular listeners. It's nice to have you with us. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and we are indeed in Christmas times. I hope that you're comfortable wherever you are in the world and that you've had a nice December solstice, as we up here in the northern hemisphere at least are moving slowly towards lighter and warmer times. And today we are going to follow up on the UFO theme here on the program. And in the first part, we are going to primarily discuss the validity of the MJ-12 documents. MJ-12, for those of you who don't know, stands for the basically the Majestic 12 group. It's the code name of a secret committee of scientists, military leaders, and government officials, supposedly formed in 1947 by an executive order of U.S. President Harry S. Truman. The purpose of the committee was to investigate UFO activity in the aftermath of the Roswell incident. And we have author and retired soldier Kevin Randle with us on the program today to talk about this and much more. He's written Case MJ-12, Roswell Revisited, Project Blue Book Exposed, just to name a few of his titles. He also has a new book coming out called Crash that goes more into the details of the UFO crashes throughout history. And this is something that we'll go more into a little bit later in the program. His blog is called A Different Perspective, and you can get to it by going to kevinrandle.blogspot.com. That's Kevin, RANDLE.blogspot.com. So with that, welcome to Red Eyes Radio, and thank you for joining us today on the program, Kevin.
Delighted to join you.
It's good to have you here, and why don't we begin to just talk a little bit about yourself, Kevin, some of your background, and let us know how long have you been into the UFO theme, and how long have you been interested in the subject, Kevin?
I think my interest in UFOs started when I was a kid. I saw a movie called Earth versus the Flying Saucers, which was very loosely based on a book by Don Kehoe, which was an alien invasion type thing with flying saucers. And from that point, I became very interested in the topic, reading what I could find and listening to what I could hear on the radio or watching on television. And it blossomed from there. And the one thing that always bothered me, at least when I was young, was it seemed that the UFO sightings that were being discussed, the flying saucer sightings, were a vague craft with indistinct outlines. And a friend of mine's mother had seen a UFO some years before, and I had an opportunity to interview her and get her opinion, and found out that she had seen the thing from fairly close up. It had very distinct edges. It was a very distinct object. It wasn't this blurred thing that I'd been led to believe. And from that point on, I just became much more interested. Had an opportunity to investigate some cases. With my military experience, moving around the United States, I had a chance to get to places I wouldn't normally have gotten to and talk to witnesses, talk to people involved in various aspects of the UFO field. And from there, it just kind of bludgeoned into a work that took me all around the United States to investigate the Roswell case, to investigate other UFO sightings, a UFO crash in the Las Vegas area, and talking to contactees and abductees around the country. So it's been a long series of investigations that I have participated in, not just watching or reading about stuff, but actually going out and meeting the people who are involved in the sightings.
And in terms of your military background, was this anything that you've got into, so to speak, because of some of the activities in the military, or are these very separate? How does that work, Kevin?
I was always interested in this before I got into the military, and the military provided me with an opportunity to investigate cases I probably wouldn't have been able to investigate simply because of the distances involved or the timing. And because of that, I was able to investigate the cases, but it had nothing to do with the military. When I worked as an intelligence officer for the Air Force, I often looked for UFO sightings, found very few. There was something that was called the Weekly Intelligence Brief, which was a classified document. I think it was secret. But parts of it were unclassified, and I remember seeing one or two UFO sightings in there, and they were always unclassified, and it was merely sort of an oddity type thing. This flight crew saw this at some point. Never anything very spectacular. So my investigations of UFOs while serving as a military officer was simply sort of a hobby that I was engaged in while serving in the military. It was not part of my military duties at all.
What if did you were involved in any regard to the with the disclosure project? Did you do any testimonies or something like that in there?
I'm not a big fan of Project Disclosure, simply because they don't vet the witnesses. They take anybody who has a story and run with it. And one of the best examples of this is the fellow, he was a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel, who talked about seeing classified documents coming through his message center in the 1950s, talking about a crashed flying saucer up on Spitsbergen Island. And great, that's wonderful, except I've got copies of the documents. And what it was is a report that had come out of a couple of newspapers, I think in Germany, began in Germany and talked about this crash on Spitsbergen Island. But it turned out to be a hoax. It was a hoax that started out as it was some kind of a Russian craft that had been found and eventually sort of evolved into being an alien craft. So the guy was telling the truth. He had seen the documents. He'd seen classified messages about this crash coming through his comm center, but it turned out to be a hoax. And that was always my complaint, you know, okay, this is great. We talked to this guy, but we have a solution for that particular case. So it didn't do us any good. It didn't advance our knowledge. It didn't move us toward disclosure. So I've never really done anything at disclosure. I have talked to Dr. Greer a couple of times, and we have been at odds on a couple of the value of certain witnesses at times, but I've really not had anything to do with it.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit of your overall background, so to speak, when it comes to ufology. You have an article up on your blog right now in terms of the different factions, I guess we can call it, that exist out there. We have believers, we have debunkers, and the skeptics and so forth. And where do you come from in terms of ufology, Kevin?
Well, that came out of an idea. It always bothered me that on the far side of the spectrum, we have the skeptics, which is a very rational position to take, meaning, well, I look at the evidence, I am not completely convinced that there's anything to the UFO field, but I'm willing to investigate or willing to listen to it. To the debunkers, who really should be called deniers, because they deny that this possibly happened. There can be no UFO sightings, therefore there are no UFO sightings. And we move to the other end of the spectrum. We have the believers, which pretty much embrace everything that comes out of the UFO field. Yes, the contactees, some of them were telling the truth. Yes, we believe in all these various crashes from around the world. Yes, we believe the United States military got into a big dogfight with UFOs in 1952. They embrace everything. But for those of us who accept that some UFOs are extraterrestrial, there really wasn't a label for us. We got lumped into the believers, and I was kind of trying to come up with a word that we could use for us, and I suggested UFO supporters, meaning we support the idea that UFOs may be interplanetary ships or interstellar ships, and run with it from there. I think Jerry Clark suggested proponents as a better word. So I was just kind of looking at that, but we've always had this spectrum in the world of UFOs of moving from the deniers, debunkers on one side to the true believers on the other side. I kind of fall into the middle of this, still looking for the absolute proof that some UFOs are extraterrestrial. I believe that some UFOs are extraterrestrial based on my research into Roswell and my discussions with the military officers who were involved there and other things that I have seen. And in fact, Edwin Easley, who was the provost marshal at the Roswell Army Airfield in 1947, that being provost marshal being like the chief of police, he commanded the MP company and a special service squadron, which was also military police. He told me personally that when I asked him if we were following the right path, meaning we thought it was extraterrestrial, he said, well, let me put it this way, that's not the wrong path. In essence, telling us, yes, what fell at Roswell was extraterrestrial. Well, this is very persuasive evidence for me from a fellow who I contacted. He didn't come out looking for us. I contacted him. So I look at that sort of thing. So I'm not